You're listening to the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast, where we explore the connection between a fit body and positive mental health. And our big mission? It's to help 10,000 runners to develop fitter minds in the next 2 years. I'm your host, Michelle Frost. Let's get moving. Welcome to this episode of the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast. Today we talk to the amazing Sue Robertson. Sue is 64. She only started running in her early 50s and now she runs 200-mile races on the trails. Enjoy. Today on Fit Mind, Fit Body, I am delighted to introduce you to Sue Robertson. Hello, Sue.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
That's good. And where am I talking to you from? Where do you live?
I'm in Perth in Western Australia.
So, well, we're almost about as far away as you can get from each other in Australia, aren't we? Almost. This amazing internet thing.
Yes.
This podcast has meant that I've had lots of referrals and I'm meeting lots of new people, and we all have this amazing hobby in common, which is awesome. And you're one of those. So it'll be a delight for me to get to know you a bit more. And everyone else who's listening will get to know you at the same time. So,
well, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
It is an absolute pleasure. So tell us, Sue, just a little bit about yourself. So where did you grow up?
My pre-teenage years, I was born and grew up in England. Mm-hmm. And when I was about 15, my father got a job in Hong Kong. Oh. So the family upped and left the UK and moved to Hong Kong. And a massive, massive cultural difference from a little tiny village in England to going over to this massive cosmopolitan place. And neither my sister or I wanted to go, but we that was the way it was. So we went. We absolutely loved it. So I did. I had to finish my senior years at school there. So I had 1 year at high school there. My sister went to boarding school back in the UK. Mm-hmm. I went back to UK to do a secretarial college when I finished at high school, mm-hmm. and then I went back to Hong Kong and as a qualified secretary. There wasn't a lot of choice in those days. Back in the 70s, you were either a secretary or a school teacher or a policeman or a nurse. So I did actually work for the Hong Kong government for about 6 months. And then I was given an amazing opportunity. So at the time that I was there, they were building a big, large oceanarium called Ocean Park. Yep. And I managed to score a job as it was in those days I was called a showgirl. So I worked with the dolphins and the sea lions.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it was amazing. I got to learn to train the dolphins. I got to ride the dolphins. I got to ride the killer whale. And I was there about 4 years. And that's where I met my first husband. He was also a dolphin trainer. And awesome. It was an incredible experience. I feel very privileged to have been able to do that.
That's secretary to dolphin trainer.
Yes.
That's cool.
Not everyone can say that, I guess.
No, I don't think so.
No. And then my husband then got offered a job in Perth in one of the northern suburbs called Yanchep. They had a big marine park that they were opening called Atlantis Marine Park. Uh-huh. So then I brought my son was 6 months old then. So our little family then came over to Perth and worked at the Atlantis Marine Park in Yanchep. Wow. Pretty much until it closed down. We were very fortunate. Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Amazing life.
So how long were you, did you stay a dolphin trainer? There's so many questions popping into my head. At the same time, were you a dolphin trainer that whole time, or how does that work?
No, I was
from dolphin to seal? I don't know.
I actually didn't have a lot to do with training the sea lions. We were
Okay.
involved with the sea lion show, but I didn't actually train the sea lions. And I certainly had about 4 years of training dolphins in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And I used to, when we came to Perth, I then had my son.
Yeah.
So I wasn't working really then, but eventually because I could actually ride the dolphins, if the girls were off sick or on holiday, I could fill their job in the park, in the riding the dolphins in the show. So I was lucky to do that. So I was really just a fill-in once we hit Perth.
Yeah.
And then I actually ended up working in the souvenir shop there as part-time, because by now I had 2 children. So I used to work part-time and the children used to go to a babysitter. So that probably went until about, came in 81, so probably about 87.
Yeah.
So I was probably there. We were probably there about 6 years. Yeah.
Just reversing for a minute. How long did your parents stay in Hong Kong for?
They stayed until about 1983. So they were there about 8 years.
Yeah.
And then they went back to the United Kingdom. Mm-hmm. But my sister stayed in Hong Kong. And to this day, her daughter still lives there. My sister has since moved around the world and now is retired in Portugal. But yeah, we've still got one member of the family still in Hong Kong.
That's good. That means you can go back and visit easily, and if you want to.
Yeah, I did until kind of COVID hit. Yeah. I was going back. In fact, no, pre-COVID. I probably went back for about 10 years and used to stay with my sister, and then she moved to Portugal, so permanently. So I have been over there once.
That's interesting. My father worked there for a while. He's British as well.
Oh, right.
But I haven't been there. I've been to maybe the airport, but I haven't actually been. It's crazy. Anyway, he worked there for at least a couple of years in charge of the, I think it was he's an electrician. So he was the head electrician. So he was in charge of all the expat electricians building, I think it was a railway at the time.
Oh, no way.
90s, I think, 90s.
Because that's why my dad went out there. My dad was the operations manager for the Mass Transit Railway.
Oh, there you go. Isn't that amazing? Anyway, that's what he was by then living in Australia, but that was a job that he did, and that's why he was there. But my husband, his father, and when he was young, was interred they were living in Hong Kong. So this is World War II. They were living in Hong Kong with his family, and then when the war came, he was in a prisoner of war camp there for 4 years, from the age of 6 till 10 or something like that. My husband's father. So we feel like we have this connection with Hong Kong anyway.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
We haven't, bits of our family have, but we haven't been there.
Yes,
so
yes. Wow. It is an incredible place, that's for sure. I think it's probably changed considerably since I lived there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I certainly relished the years I was there. It was a real privilege.
Actually, I've had a client too who lived there a long time. And like you said, like from Britain, and she talked a lot about it, and she was a friend of mine and client right up, including this time, with all of the Chinese stuff that was going on before COVID. And by then she'd moved to New Zealand, but she was quite, upset by all of that was happening. So this keeps coming up all the time in my life, Hong Kong. And on the podcast, I've had heaps of people say that they lived there for different periods. Right. So it's quite interesting.
Yes, because there's quite a mecca. Yes, and as I found out later on, it also has some amazing running trails there. Yes. I have also. That's what one of the podcast people told me, which I wouldn't have known because. Absolutely. It's
fascinating. Yes. We all just want to go to Hong Kong and go for a run. The trails.
Yes.
So when you were a child, do you remember doing much sport? Like, was it in your life apart from what school made you do?
I did. I used to ride pony.
Oh, okay.
So that was my sport. I think I might have played netball at school. Yeah. And certainly later on, I remember doing hurdles, but that was about the only running kind of athletic thing that I ever did. I hated hockey. Yeah. I always tried to get out of swimming. So I really didn't do much when sports-wise apart from horse riding.
When you became a dolphin person, that would have required an amount of fitness, I would think, to maintain in order to do that.
Yes, but I don't think I actually did anything. I don't remember doing any exercise. I certainly didn't go to a gym.
So it just kind of came naturally, your abilities in the water and things with the fish.
And I couldn't even really swim. Well, I could do breaststroke, but
oh wow. That's amazing. Maybe the dolphins knew that. They're quite empathetic.
They were quite happy to come and rescue me.
Yes. Look after you.
Thank goodness.
So you get to the end of the SeaWorld type of experience.
Yes.
Or Atlantis, I think you said.
Yes.
What did you do then? What was your life?
We actually moved up to Karratha for a couple of years, which is in the northwest of Western Australia. And I worked in my then husband got a job as a duty manager at one of the hotels, and I ended up working in reception in that hotel. Yes. And we were there for a couple of years, and I loved Karratha. My children were they must have been about 5 and 7, so they went to primary school, and I used to work around the hours that they were at school. And so we actually lived on site. We lived in the hotel in an apartment that they had there, and had 2 years there. Came back to Perth mainly because my mother-in-law unfortunately had breast cancer, so that was what brought us back to Perth. And I really didn't know what to do once I got back here. Yeah. And again, another opportunity. Very good friends of mine had a friend who was opening a hat shop in the city, in Perth City, a hat shop.
Milliner.
Yes, except it was more, I would like to say it was more men's hats. So it was hats that are already made. I wasn't making anything. Yeah. I really I was the manager in the end.
Oh, wow.
In the hat shop. I loved it. And I was there for about 24 years.
Oh, wow. So
yes.
Secretarial, water, and retail.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
That sounds right.
And so you know a lot about hats, men's hats.
I certainly did, yes. So that was until about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And I did love it. And the man who owned the shop pretty much gave me free rein to run it the way I wanted to do it. And again, I was lucky. I used to work 9 till 3:30, so I was home by the time my son and daughter got home from school, and 5 days a week. And it was perfect, absolutely perfect. And those days I had gone back to horse riding. So when I was about 35, I started riding again, and I would just go to a riding school and ride. And in that time, my first husband and I had split up. Yep. But I did meet my second husband there. And so we used to ride every weekend. And then when I had my 40th birthday, my parents gave me some money, and I went and bought my own horse.
Oh, that's awesome. Is that the first time you'd owned a horse?
I did have a pony in England before we left for Hong Kong, which we just used to keep in a paddock down the road. But this was different. So
as an adult,
as an adult, yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I was very fortunate. So I used to ride pretty much like 2 or 3 times during the week. I'd go after the kids were home from school. We'd go out and see the horse, and I'd ride on the weekends as well.
Wow. So what kind of riding were you doing?
At the time then I was doing, we did a little bit of eventing. And then unfortunately about 2 years after I got that horse, it picked up a condition which there's nothing that you can do about it, called the wobbles, which is like a paralysis, I can't say the word, paralyzing of something to do with the nerves in the spine, and they can't control their legs. And it was really sad. So I had to have him put down. And that was very sad. The upside was because one of the ladies I worked with also was into horses. She had suggested to me that I actually had him insured, which is what I did do. Yeah. And so sadly, when this all happened, I then had some money, and I was able to buy this amazing show jumping horse. So it kind of worked out in the end. And for about 9 years, I did show jumping with this beautiful horse. Yes.
Oh gosh.
Yes, that was amazing. Yeah.
Because even I've had horse riding in my past also. No, but not so much eventing and I just grew up on a farm and we had lots of horses. I had my own horse. Yeah, that sort of thing. But I do know that it requires a considerable amount of fitness as well when you're doing that kind of activity. I imagine with the horse, with jumping, with show jumping as well,
yes,
you would have had to at least maintain a certain level of fitness in some way.
I guess I did, but again, I think it was purely just from riding or walking. I couldn't run to save my life. Certainly didn't go to a gym. So it must have been just being fit from doing whatever I was doing working in the shop or walking to the bus stop and all that sort of stuff. I still didn't know about fitness as such.
So you must have had quite a natural, first it feels like you're very natural with animals. Like you must have quite a thing with animals, which is cool.
Yes.
But that you must have a level of, some people seem to have more innate fitness or whatever than the rest of us. I don't know how that works, and it's really not fair because the moment I stopped running for a week, it's like it's crazy.
And definitely that's I could definitely say that after I stopped horse riding. So in the end I just lost my nerve. I lost my nerve with show jumping. Yeah. And I was able to pass her on to a junior who had a great career with her. But then suddenly everything changed when I wasn't doing anything. I was like, I really need to do something to kind of maintain some kind of fitness.
And so is that when you decided that maybe you should do running, or did you try the thing?
Well, it kind of so I actually ended up leaving my job. So I retired as such. And my daughter had 2 small children. And she said, I think we should go to the gym. And I'm like, what?
What?
So she persuaded me. She persuaded me to go. I think before that, when I thought I needed to do something. I don't know if you remember curves.
I do remember curves. Yes.
So I think after I'd sold my horse, literally, I think I had about 6 or 8 months when I was still at work. And that's when I suddenly noticed things were changing. And I would have been in my early 50s. And I was like, I need to do something. And somehow I heard about curves and I thought, maybe I can do that. And I remember going to curves, and I used to probably go 2 or 3 times a week. And all I can remember now is the thing going, change station now. And I was like, oh, goodness. And I did it for a while, and I met a friend of mine who I used to work with at the marine park. And she was actually a personal trainer. And she said to me, you're going to curves? And I went, yeah. She said, how can you do that? And I was like, oh, no, it's easy. I just go and tell me what to do, and I just go around in circles, But then when my daughter decided to go to a gym, and she persuaded me to go and join one of her classes, and I think it was a body balance class, I was like, now this is different, and this is better than curves. And I remember having to have, they want to hook you into the gym system, obviously. And I remember having a couple of sessions with a personal trainer and thinking, this is all right. And also at the same time, my sister, I had been to see her before I actually retired from work.
Yeah.
And she was a triathlete, and she ran. But to me, I kind of knew what it was, but I didn't appreciate what she was doing. I think that would be the fairest thing to say. And I remember going over to visit her, and I was like, I need to get fit. And I think we started doing little runs together, which I really struggled in Hong Kong because the humidity was so high. Yeah. So we were, it was more of a walk/run. But that's when I decided maybe I should start doing a little bit of running as well. And so I went to I did sign up with a personal trainer. I did go and do the classes with my daughter. And I started running at the back of my local shopping centre. And I remember having bandages on both my knees because my knees didn't really like me running.
Oh.
And I could barely do like two or 3 Ks. But the more I worked out in the gym with my personal trainer,
you got stronger.
The stronger that my knees got.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually I was able to kind of pick up a little bit of running, and that was my first sort of way.
And you were early 50s then? That's what you said?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so what I know that you've entered events since then. So
yes,
what was the first event? How did that happen? Like, it's one thing to go from the personal trainer in the gym who are just getting me fit because I know I need to do something to actually entering an event.
Yes.
The whole other
so
story.
I think I have a feeling it was my son who actually grew up with his dad. And I remember he must have been in Perth because he did spend a lot of time over Easter. He worked in one of the hotels in Cairns. Mm-hmm. And he must have been over here at some stage. And he said, Mum, if you're going to run, you might as well do something. And I was like, well, yeah, maybe. And I kind of knew what the City to Surf run was. And he said to me, we should sign up and do the City to Surf. They're like the 12K one. And my daughter said that she would do it with us. And I was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. 3 months, no, less than that, 2 months before we went to do that, I hurt my back. Don't ask me how I hurt it. I have no idea. And I was like, damn it. And I had to pretty much run it. And my daughter and her brother, they ran it. But the thrill of going down that finish line, I will never forget, even though I had run it. And I remember when he finished, like, okay, what can we do now? And we found out there was the WA Marathon Club, and they used to do little runs everywhere. And there was going to be, like, about 6 weeks later, they were doing a 5K run at Lake Gwelup, which is quite close to where we live. And I said to Bianca, oh, maybe we could go and do that. She was like, yeah, okay, let's go and do that. And we did. And from there, I remember going, it sounds silly, but I remember going into our local bike shop to get, because my husband and I just used to ride mountain bikes up and down the coast. And we went into this bike shop to buy a bike for my sister who was coming over to visit. And we went in on a Saturday and it was really busy. And I went, don't worry, let's not worry about it now. I'll come back during the week. And I went back on my own during the week. Spoke to the guy in the bike shop, and he said to me, my wife goes to your gym. And I was like, oh, how do you know? He said, because she's recognized your water bottle. So my husband used to work for Elders and his wife used to work for Elders, and I had an Elders water bottle and she had spotted it.
Oh my God.
And I said, apparently I had met her like before, and he said, she's here working in the shop. So he got her to come out of the office and we started chatting. And she said to me that she had signed up to do the Pink Triathlon, which is your real beginners triathlon. They do have them in the other states.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, that sounds like fun. Kind of my ears going, that's what my sister does. Yeah. So I said, oh, maybe we can do that too. So we actually signed up to do this little Pink Triathlon. I could barely swim. I could do breaststroke with my head like a nana. And we signed up to do this Pink Triathlon. Both of us had these old mountain bikes. I managed somehow to get through the swim. It was in a pool. And so they had us all doing like a snake through. And of course, I was shocking. But eventually I got through the pool bit. Jumped on my bike. We had about a 12K bike ride. And then it was like this 3K run around an oval. And my daughter was obviously in front of me, but I will never forget coming down the finish line, and she had finished and I was crying. I was so happy. I cried all the way down the finish line, and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And so I remember getting home on this great big high and saying to my husband, I need a real bike. I can't do this stuff on a mountain bike. I need a real bike. And so he did very kindly. For Christmas that year, I got a proper inexpensive bottom of the thing road bike. And so a couple of times I rode out with the local bike shop because they used to do bike rides out of there. Yeah. But also the girl who was in the bike shop, when we went to the pink triathlon, we got given a little goodie bag. And in the goodie bag was a flyer for a triathlon course.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember her calling me and she's saying, you should do that triathlon course. And I had looked at it and it was something like $250 or something for an 8-week course. And I was like, well, I don't think I can afford that. And she said, oh, yes, you could. Yes, you could. And I spoke to my husband and he said, yeah, you should do it. Do it with Bianca, my daughter, and do it with Odette. I was like, okay, let's do this. Michelle, that changed my life. Oh. I can honestly say.
That's amazing.
So we did this course. It was an 8-week course. There were probably about 50 women altogether, but they would turn up. Because there were different times of when they would do the cycling or the swimming or the running. You didn't all go to all this each session. So there might be only 8 or 9 of you at each session.
Yeah.
But the whole idea was to do this 8-week course and then do the triathlon, the women's triathlon, which was in the March. So this was in January.
Yeah.
So we did the course. I tried very hard to learn how to swim, but I still basically was doing breaststroke, to be honest. But anyway, that didn't matter. And the day before the actual triathlon, everyone got together. We all got taken out for breakfast, or we went to a breakfast together with the coach and started to meet each other. And one of the ladies had said, because this is pre-Facebook days, we should do a list of everyone's names and their email addresses. Yeah, that's a good idea. So she had done that, and we all did the triathlon the next day. And I did the Enticer, which is like the beginning one. There's like 200-meter swim, which I did with my head up above the water. But the bike and the run, I actually, was okay. And I loved it. It was so much fun. And we all went for drinks afterwards, and we were all going, let's all keep on training. Let's do something. We meet and do a run or a bike ride or whatever. Yeah. So that was what we did. And it became a core group of about 15 ladies. And for various things we would meet for a cycle or a swim or a run. And gradually we went through doing various different triathlons together.
Oh, wow.
So starting from doing the Enticer, I gradually learned how to do freestyle. And some of these ladies who were good swimmers, they were amazing. They used to take me to the beach and I would learn how to freestyle. It was very scary, but I did it. And 12 years later, we're all like, there's a core group, even more of a core group now of 10 of us that are still really good friends. We've been on holiday together.
That's awesome.
We all did the half Ironman in Busselton over several years together. Yeah. And we still go out for dinner and stuff. Yeah, and a lot of the time now I've kind of swung away, not from their friendship, but because of the different running that I'm doing. But we still keep in touch, and yeah, that really did change my life.
Oh, wow.
That triathlon course. Yeah.
That sounds just amazing. It just gives me shivers up and down my spine. It's amazing when you look back and you say that was a pivotal decision that I did to take that course, for example.
Yes.
Or to, even just open the goodies bag and look at the flyer that's in there. How many times do you throw that stuff out?
Yes. Or if I hadn't gone into the bike shop that day and seen and met, the guy's wife and Odette and done the pink triathlon course, who knows?
That's
but
awesome.
That was where it all started.
So do you do any triathlons now?
No, I did do, I think in the end, we started by doing the sprint distances, and my sister had done an Ironman back in 1992, I think it was. And I was just in awe of what she had done, but I still don't think I really realised what she did. So, but one year, a couple of years after I'd started doing triathlon with these girls, my sister came over to do the Busselton half Ironman, and it was a real thrill to be able to watch her. But we watched her the first year, and she came again a second year. She must have done 3 because we did it as a team. So the girl I met in the bike shop, my daughter and myself entered as a team. That was 1 year. I did do the run that year,
Yeah.
so I had actually built up my running. And then we did it as solo, and it was the water was horrendous. I'll never forget thinking I'll never get through the swim. It was really rough, but anyway, I did get through the swim, and we did it. So I think after that, I think I did about 10 half Ironman in the end.
Yeah.
And progressed to do 2 Ironman in 2015 and 2016.
Oh, wow.
I did the full, which was amazing.
And you did
both of them in Busselton.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you must have been very familiar with that course.
Yes.
It sounds like you did that course a few times in different ways.
That's very true. And even when I wasn't doing it, I used to go down, we used to volunteer or cheer on people on within the tri club that I was in. Yes. But what I think I did forget to say was with the group of ladies that I was doing the triathlon group with, when we then went off on our own and were doing our own training and doing triathlons, we also built up from doing half marathons to doing a full marathon.
Of course.
And I think that was in about 2013 or no, maybe 2000. I did actually write it down. 2012. Yep. So 7 of us from that group decided we would do the Perth Marathon. So I remember my sister, because she was a long distance runner. I remember her. She wrote me a program. She wrote me a program for my first half marathon, and she wrote me us a program for our first marathon. So 7 of us did the Perth Marathon together and stayed together from the very start. And it was the most incredible day. I never thought I'd ever do a marathon. It was just way out of my, when my sister was doing it, I was like, no way I'm going to do that. But it was fabulous, and I've got the most amazing photo of all 7 of us all crossing towards the finish line together. We actually just split because the finish line wasn't big enough to hold all 7 of us in the widthways. But it was finishing that was the rawest feeling, like the most amazing feeling. But I was so raw at the end and thinking, oh my God, I can't even undo my shoes because I couldn't bend down. The most incredible feeling.
Wow.
When you had done it.
Yeah.
And my daughter had done it in a team. I'm not sure why she just didn't do the marathon with us, but certainly a couple of weeks later, she definitely had FOMO, and she's like, Mum, the City to Surf Marathon's coming up. I really want to do that. And I was like, somebody will be able to do it with you. And she was like, yeah, maybe. But nobody else put their hand up. So the first marathon was in June, and the City to Surf was in August. And in the end, it was me. Of course. I did the marathon with her.
What a great mum you are.
And it was amazing. It was beautiful. Of course, towards the end, I was really struggling. And there were friends of ours who were out there from the northern suburbs running group, and they're saying, like, jump on our bus. And I could barely jump on their bus. And I think we had about 5 or 6 Ks to go. But I did finish it, and we finished it together. Oh. And that's probably another one of the incredible, memorable moments. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was very special.
So what does your running look like now? What do you do
now? It's slower, and I've tipped over. So after Ironman, I pretty much turned to trail running. Mm-hmm. And that changed everything again. Yeah. I got my daughter was doing triathlon still, and it was all very competitive, and I think she was getting quite uptight about everything.
Yeah.
And I had done a couple of trail runs, which I absolutely loved. Completely different kind of people out there, so supportive and friendly.
Yeah.
And eventually I got Bianca to come and join me on a couple of trail runs, and so now, the last 4 or 5 years we've trail run together.
Very tight, the two of you, by the sound of it.
Yes.
You and your daughter.
Yes. It's hard to explain, but it works.
It's amazing that you've been able to share this sport together as well, like what we're sports, I should say, with
Yes.
Triathlon and then just obviously the trail running as well now.
Yes, yeah. And it's, I mean, we're different runners really, because if I let her go, she's way faster than I am.
Mm-hmm.
But we do a lot of run walking together,
mm-hmm.
But our training individually tends to be a little bit different unless we're out on a long run. So we've both got different coaches. So her week stuff between Monday and Friday is generally a little bit different to mine, but we still meet and we just go and do our own thing. But we've got up to the really big stuff now.
So tell us about that really big stuff. What is that really big stuff that you're challenging yourself with now?
In February just gone, we both did the Delirious 200 miler in Western Australia together.
This makes me feel tired.
It was, whoever thought.
That's amazing.
Certainly not me.
How old are you now, Sue?
64.
That's just amazing. That's just awesome.
Thank you.
It's really cool. I've only got 10 years to go and I can be like you.
Well, there's no excuses now, Michelle. I'm sorry.
I'm like 60 kilometers is my limit so far. I'm not.
It's still a long way. Oh,
I know.
Goodness.
I keep speaking to people like you and on the podcast, and I just think maybe my running isn't over. My long distance running instead of just
because it slows down. I mean, when we did Delirious, all our training, which has been like this for about the last 4 years and has gradually obviously built up to do this. It wasn't just a...
Oh, you didn't just wake up one day and go out next week and do the whole 200
No,
miles?
Not quite. Although I paced a friend twice for Delirious in various sections.
Yeah.
And I had said to her on the first time, I am never going to do this. No way.
Of course you did.
and then last year, Bianca and I, her then partner, was doing Irrational, which is the 200 miler in South Australia.
Yeah.
So we were crewing for Nick, and we had a meeting here before we went, obviously. And it was during that meeting that my daughter Bianca had said, Mum, maybe I can do Delirious next year. Who's going to be my pacer? And I said, I can't even remember what I said, but then she said, maybe we can do it together. And I said I would never do it together because I don't like doing the dark on my own.
Yeah.
And that first night you are on your own. So it was only the fact that Bianca said, let's do it together.
That helped.
That helped. And I was like, are you serious? And she's like, yeah, let's do it together. And I was like, okay. So the good thing was that we decided that before we got caught up with everything that was going on at Irrational when we were crewing Nick, because it's, what it's like. You go to an event, you go, I'm going to do this, I'm going to sign up and I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
But we had already decided before we went that we were going to do the one in February.
So it wasn't just the endorphins from being a part of the whole.
No. But it did give us something to work towards, because we had done our first 100 mile about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So we were kind of working our way up, but it was not in my sights to do the 200. That's for sure. But the other thing I was going to say was it's a lot of hiking. Yeah. So that first day we walked probably about 60 or 70 kilometres quite steadily. I mean, obviously you've got the 8 stations where you stop and you eat and you might be there 10 minutes. But from the second day we were hiking, but we're pretty well known for having a good hike.
Good hike pace.
Good hike pace. And that's what it comes down to. If you can maintain that, you've got every chance of getting through.
Spoke to you would know Kirsten Maplestone.
Yes, I met her at Delirious a couple of years ago.
She's been on the podcast, and it was just fascinating listening to her explain to I'm not a fast runner at all. I don't care about the speed as long as I just beat the cutoffs for the different sections and things depending on the race. That's all she cares about. It's like I could walk the whole thing as long as I make it by the.
And it's so so true. That is so true. And I must admit because we started our race on the Wednesday, and by Friday afternoon, I was getting a little bit worried. I think we were still well in front. We had like an hour and a half before cut off at Walpole. Because the race got changed, unfortunately, because they had fires in Denmark. So instead of it being a point-to-point, it became an out and back.
Yeah.
But anyway, we still had about an hour and a half on this particular aid station, which is where we would normally have sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting a little bit twitchy. And I know Bianca was like, "We're doing fine." And I was like, "It's your feet." Because she was having a lot of issues with her feet. So every aid station, our crew were checking her feet. I mean, it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and keeping on top of everything. And I remember her at one stage getting really cross when I said, "Oh, it's your feet, you're holding us up." And she stormed off.
Oh.
She's not really stormed off, but she took off at a rate of knots as if to, and she was right. If we hadn't looked after her feet, all things could have happened. Yeah. But what I was going to say is like we had plenty of time in the end. And by the time we got to about 3 aid stations later, we were 7 hours in front of cutoff.
Oh,
so
wow.
And the longer the race goes, the more
sort of compounding
the more
effect.
time. Yes, yeah. But hiking, so long as we could keep going, we were doing fine.
So you do all these amazing things. You obviously, the first half of your life, or wherever you want to put the line, was I think it seems like you stayed pretty fit just because you physically, something to do with your genetics, but also some of the things that you did in, whether it was with the dolphins or with the horses or whatever.
Yes.
They also kept you moving. You're obviously a person who keeps moving anyway. So that seems to be part of your
fortunate
who you are. You don't just sit still.
No.
Like some people. And then you end up with, running through this triathlons and now into the trail running. What do you think keeps you going? What do you think keeps you moving? Are you goal driven, or are there other things going on?
I don't think it's goal driven. Well, there's always that. And it was one way I remember even back in the triathlon days, and it's true now. I remember after my first Ironman getting what they used to call the blues, like Ironman blues. When I had finished my first one, it was like, now what do I do? Oh. Well, the answer to that, sign up for another race. Of course it is. And that's carried on pretty much into the trail running now. Yeah. So one, I love what happens at race day, but I love the training towards race day.
Yeah.
I'm not a single person that will go out and enjoy the trails on my own. I probably could if I forced myself, but I enjoy the camaraderie and the social side of running with the people that we run with.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
I do love being outside. I hate being cooped up inside. Mm-hmm. So this gives me nature. You always feel so good when you're out there. I mean, even if it's raining, I still love being outside. But you get the combination of being able to exercise, enjoy nature with good friends. What more could you want?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have goals right now, not goals. You have races, which are a goal.
Yes.
Already.
Absolutely. So,
and do you think you always have one from what you just said? Then you always have a race that you are heading towards.
Yeah, and it's just getting more and more silly now. It really
is it? Tell me what's coming up.
So when we finished Delirious, I had no plans to do another one when I actually finished it. Mm-hmm. But by the next day, I was like, I'd actually really quite like to do the original course, which is from Northcliffe to Albany. Mm-hmm. My parents lived in Albany for a number of years. They're gone now, but Albany still holds a really special place in my heart. I've still got a house down there, got mum and dad's house down there. So, and I love that coastline. The coastline towards Albany from Walpole, through Denmark, is just stunning. So I'm like, I'm not broken, which I wasn't. Yeah. I think we should do it again. So we've signed up to do Delirious next February.
Okay, so that's a lot of training.
That's a lot of training. So I've actually
Do you have a coach? You were saying that before. So you have
I
help
have
with what it is that you do and all of that kind of stuff.
I guess my coach is a guy called Glenn Smitherin who runs Consistent Running, which I think is a perfect name. And in fact, I signed up with him when I did my first 100 miler because although I'd got my goals through and I had done a 50 miler, I'd done 100 Ks. To train for a 100 miler, I actually thought I needed help.
A bit of extra.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And one of the biggest things I got from that was he didn't want me to run as much as I thought I should.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I think that was one thing. And the other thing was the recovery after a race.
Yeah.
So that you don't end up thinking like 2 days later, I need to get back out and run again, when that may not necessarily be the case. Mm-hmm. So I've now been with him since then. So certainly for Delirious, you can use, and what I do is quite often use a long distance race as part of your training. Mm-hmm. So even before Delirious, I did a 50 miler in the September, mm-hmm. which my daughter should have done with me. But unfortunately, when we were training, she tripped on a step and fractured her ankle. So that was really unfortunate. She had a 3K walk out of the park that we were in, unfortunately. So she couldn't do the 50 miler, but I did. Yeah. Which was good training again. And it's I still do a lot of hiking. There was a massive cutoff because it was 100 miler. And again, I was lucky to be able to pick up a friend who was doing it, and we pretty much did certainly 2/3 of that together. And then after that, I've kind of swung off a little bit, but as Bianca came back from her injury, I hurt my hamstring. So I could hike, but I couldn't run. Mm-hmm. And Bianca was still building up. So one of the other events we did was an event called the 6 Inch, which is a 47K run in Dwellingup, which is on trail, but it's quite runnable trail, so long as you don't trip over the hidden rocks. And there are plenty. So I've done it twice before and both times fallen over. But a few years ago, somebody had done it, and they had suggested a 12-inch. Mm-hmm. And so years before, people have actually gone out and back. So Bianca and I decided for training for Delirious that we would do that. So we started from the end on the Saturday night and ran through the night. Actually, it was a hike because we weren't running. Mm-hmm. Hiked through the night to the start. It was a 4:30 a.m. start. And then we actually did the event. Mm-hmm. So the sad thing was we actually didn't make cutoff, but we still got to finish the event. So we did like 98 Ks, but we had gone through the night with no sleep, which is one of the things that was part of the training for Delirious.
So to experience that and see what it's like.
Yes. So that's what we had done for our lead up for Delirious. Mm-hmm. So this year, Bianca's just, poor thing, Bianca's just come out of COVID about 4 weeks ago. So after Delirious, we had both signed up for Light Horse 24 Hour, which we did last year, which is another one of Sean Kessler's events. So
I was going to say, how do you find all these events? Like, I only hear about them on my podcast.
Sean Kessler is the most amazing person. So he's gradually built up. And I remember the first time I met him was at a 50K run, and he was wearing a tutu, and he had long hair, and he had long beard. I was like, who is this man? And he was just a runner that particular day, but he's the one who's started off all the races, and most of the trail races that we do are run by him under Ultra Series WA. Or the other ones are done by David Kennedy, who does one called Waters Trail on Foot, which is in September, which is the 100 miler I did a few years ago, and he also runs the 6 Inch. So Bianca and I should have done Light Horse together 3 weeks ago. She couldn't do it; she was stuck at home, so I did it on my own. And although with that kind of race we wouldn't do together, we are usually there at the start line together, and she couldn't be there, and she was absolutely devastated. And I felt as flat as a tack. So it just shows how much of a bond that we do have, because at that start of that race, I actually thought, what am I doing here? I just want to go home.
Oh.
I felt guilty, even though it wasn't my fault that she was sick. But anyway, I did go on and I did run the 24 hours, which was great. And then last weekend we did KEP Ultra, which is another one that's been revamped. It's now called KEP V2 because the original used to be from gone
some other place
to Mount Helene, northern to Mount Helene. It was 100k or a 75k. And a few years ago that one had to stop, so Sean revamped it last year, so now it's an out and back, so you go from Bundaring to either Mount Helena and back, which is the 75k, or Mundaring to Wooroloo and back. So Bianca and I did the 75k on Saturday. She'd only, I say, just come out of COVID. She's probably had a couple of weeks to recover. So the idea, I thought, was to hike it, but we actually walked most of it, except for the last 15k's, which we hiked. Yes. So that was great. She's got a couple more events coming on, and I'm going to crew her for those. She's going to do the 24-hour in a couple of weeks in the same spot, and I'll just crew her. And we've got a couple of friends coming along, so she still will get to do that. And then she's going to do Birdie's Backyard, which is in August, which is one of those ones where you go round and round in circles on the hour, every hour. I've been a
lap ticker.
Oh, okay. Yes, so you know what I mean. Oh, and they just had the world record broken last night in Germany. Really? Yes. No. 90 laps.
No.
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
Unbelievable. Yeah, so Bianca's doing that one and I'll crew her. So our next event together will be the Waterous Trail on foot in September, which is the 100-miler again.
Oh, wow. Just the names of some of those races, it makes me, it's kind of, they're all very emotive, you're very kind of, they're like a story just in the name. It's like,
yes, and I think it's yes, it doesn't look good on the t-shirt, because on the t-shirt it's the WTF, and people look at it, and that's why I keep saying Waterous Trail on foot. So we'll do the 100-miler for that, and then the plan is to do the double 6-inch again before Delirious.
So is there any stopping you, Sue? Do you feel like
I kind of wish there was, because my plan was actually that was going to be it until I met Sean yesterday morning.
Oh, really?
And at this stage, he's kind of coerced me into doing the Irrational 200-miler in South Australia next April.
So that would be a big long one in February and a long one in April.
Yeah, which is a lot. So we'll just see on that one. My poor body, I just don't know. I hope it's I do everything I can.
Do you get, like you mentioned, an injury earlier? Is that a thing for you? Do you get many injuries?
I think I've been fairly lucky. I have had a stress fracture in my foot. I've had knee niggles, but most of the time, if it's my knees, I can manage it. And then the hamstring, it came back again a few weeks ago, but at the moment it seems to be holding its own, so that's a good thing. Years ago I used to have back issues, but that seems to have gone now.
Do you do much strength stuff, or is it mostly just running? What does your training kind of look like? You don't have to give us great big detail, but is it mostly just running and long running, or do you mix it up a bit?
So one of the things that I just go back a little bit again.
Yeah.
One of the things when I was with what we called ourselves the Team E girls, so the girls I was doing triathlon with, I thought I needed to go back to work. That was what started it. And I was talking to one of the girls, and I loved my personal trainer. And one of the girls said, "Why don't we go and do Cert 3 and Cert 4 in fitness? That would be fun." And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe I could become a personal trainer." I loved going to mine. So for a year I went to TAFE. I found it extremely hard. I wasn't used to being back in a school environment again and learning and stuff. But a year later, I came out with my Cert 3 and my Cert 4 in fitness as a personal trainer. And I was very fortunate that when I used to go to the gym with my daughter, and the lady who I met in the shop, the bike shop,
Odette,
one of her personal trainers also was into horses, and we were quite good friends on Facebook. And I knew she worked in a studio quite close to my house. And so I contacted her one day and I said, I had started to do my own thing with little groups, but it wasn't really going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought, I need to do something serious. So I contacted this lady and I said, this studio where you work, is there any chance that I can come and do work experience? I need to go another stage before maybe I can get myself a job.
Yeah.
And so we had a meeting and I met the boss of the studio, and they agreed that I could go like 3 afternoons a week, 2 or 3 hours, and just kind of shadow and watch what was going on, which is what I did. So I did it for 3 months, and then they offered me a job.
Of course they did.
So I was a personal trainer. So I was personal trainer for 7 years until I retired last June.
Look at that.
But I'm my worst trainer.
And here comes the...
Yes. So when I was, I'm good if I've got a personal trainer for myself, but I'm not good at training myself.
Yeah.
But my coach does now my running coach gives me strength stuff to do, which I have done.
Yes.
And when I got my injury last year with my hamstring, I went to a lady at the long run who works out of Sean's premises for Ultra Series. And she gave me a strength program to do, and I religiously did it right up until delirious.
And then stopped.
And then I stopped. So I'm kind of weaning myself back on again. I've got everything in my front room. I've got kettlebells and dumbbells and stuff.
All those things.
I just need to push myself to actually go and do it.
A bit like me, I buy a book and I'm like, well, I bought the book now. Oh, I have to read it? I don't know what's going on.
Yes, I know.
I don't know. So I totally understand that.
I do. I am a member still of the gym, not the gym where I was working, but the other gym. So body balance was a big thing and I need to get back to that. My hamstring actually didn't like me doing that. So I stopped doing it for a while, but I do need to get back into that. And I do the little sessions that my coach gives me, which I can easily do. I can easily do at home.
Yeah. All right.
But,
so when you were injured, were you off running for a little while?
I walked. Yeah. So I didn't run. I just hiked. Yes. Yeah. And I could still do everything, but just at the slower pace. Yeah. And I was fortunate.
Were you thinking about running all the time?
Yes.
I wish I could run. Worse. Everybody's now running. It's not fair.
Why is it when that happens and somebody goes running past you and you go, oh, that's not fair. I wish I could do that. And often when I run past somebody, I often think, are they walking because they want to walk? Or are they walking because they're injured and they can't run? And they're looking at me and going, oh, you lucky thing.
I wish.
You're running. Yes. Yeah. Which is bizarre, but I think it's so true. The more you can't do something,
the more you want
generally, the more you want to.
Grass is always greener on the other side.
It is.
So how long do you think that you'll run for, Sue?
I look at some of those ladies. So even I can tell through Facebook and through Aura that there's a lady, I think she's in her 70s still.
Yeah.
Marie Boyd is her name. Well, I don't know her, but she's certainly, I look at her and she's in her 70s and she's still doing amazing stuff. Yeah. Wouldn't that be cool to still be
absolutely
doing stuff? And even if I'm not running, if I can still hike and do stuff, that would be amazing.
Do you feel like running for you will always, like if you consider, because even now you're talking about it like events, like like for you running is signing up to events. It's not just going for a run on the weekend. As you said earlier, you have to force yourself sometimes to go for just a trail run for no necessarily a purpose, if that makes sense. Because you've always got a race you're running to train for anyway. by the sound of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I do love the training as much as I love the race.
So that's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what you do in the coming decades, and whether you just then say sign up for races that are enough to get you trained, keep you training, but not necessarily the ones at the super long distances.
Exactly.
Because your body maybe doesn't want to do the super long ones anymore.
Well, it was going to be the last one next February. And the thing is with those long ones, it is long. It's being really brutal on your body, really, even if I'm only hiking, because you don't sleep very much. But as long as I can still enjoy it, I think that's the biggest thing. And I still get such a buzz out of meeting everybody, and the fact that Bianca and I do it together, that's still the biggest. That's still the biggest thing for sure for me.
So what gets you out the door on those days when it's just not very nice outside and you just don't want to go for a run today? What do you do?
Because I know how good I feel afterwards.
Yeah. So you still go. You're not the kind of person who just hits that alarm and just.
Oh no. If I've got to do it, I'll definitely do it. Absolutely. Yeah. And so because I don't go out very often on my own. When I'm out there, I actually go, this isn't so bad. But I will stay local, as opposed to I've never gone out and done a trail run as such, really, on my own.
So you from what you've said all the way through, really, that most of your runs are with other people?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So you have sort of set days and times where you all go out for a jog?
We've all got our little Facebook groups and stuff. And it's so easy to just go, who's up for this, or someone else will go, I'm doing this, who's going to join me? I've got a friend, Peter Moore, who's signed up to do Unreasonable, which is the other 200 miler in the Blue Mountains. And I'm very privileged to be on her crew and be one of her pacers. So at the moment, hopefully now our kick's out of the way, we've got about 4 or 5 weeks of training, and we'll do lots of vertical stuff. So go out into the national parks and do some serious vertical training before she goes over. Gosh, so I'm excited for that.
It's amazing the amount of people who've talked on the podcast about trail running and just the amount of community that is built up around it. Because even it's not like you're going to do this quite extreme training with very steep hills and things, but it's for somebody else. It's somebody else's event that they're going. And likewise, I'm sure you have people who do that when you're training for something crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, the crew even the crew that we had for Delirious I think we had about 5 or 6 people who crewed us, and they gave up, 4 or 5 days of their lives to be there and be at aid stations or run with us or look after us or drive us around when we need. It was incredible. It's really hard to explain, but
it is,
to be part of just somebody else's journey, even with the other lady, Darlene, who I paced before, just to be part of her journey is really special, and it's an amazing community. And what we have here in Perth, I mean, I'm sure it's the same in other states as well. They would have their own little communities like that, but there's nothing like it. It's very privileged to be part of it.
It's really cool. I love it. So it was a question I was, that's right. Do you have, because you're running with people a lot, do you ever listen to anything, or is it like always sort of, chatting or just companionable silence? Is that?
I like that word. Yes.
Word, companionable.
So yes, but I know what you mean. So no, I don't listen to music. I think this is one of the good, like, so with other people when we go out, there's always the chit chat, but there's also companionable silence. Bianca and I have got very good at that.
Yeah.
So we will have hours maybe when we're not talking, but then you pick up the conversation again. And yet the other, when I did the last race, I did the 24-hour. I've always done that on my own. I mean, everyone else is around, but I was with a guy for like 12 hours overnight, and it was lovely. And we just chatted through the dark hours and heard his stories and stuff. And that was actually really nice. But out in the bush during the day, I'm very happy with just listening to the bush and the odd chit chat. Yeah. I'm a big fan of companionable silence.
Yeah, that's lovely. That just kind of. Do you ever have anybody who's kind of annoying?
We're very lucky. We I know what you mean. And there have been times.
I mean, normal marathons, they come along with their boombox or whatever, or someone who just won't stop talking to you.
Yes.
Even though you don't.
I know what you mean. Or sometimes we've done races. So there's a one in Australian called the Aussie Day 100 is the one that we've done, but there is a 50K and a 25. And sometimes somebody will come past and you hear their phone go. It'll give them their pace, like 5Ks average, 6 minute 30. And I think, oh my goodness, imagine listening to that every kilometre. That would drive me absolutely crazy. Or I've been out in the bush with Bianca and there might be 2 or 3 people maybe behind us who aren't with us, who don't stop talking. And we just have to let them go because I can't do that. I don't want to listen to their conversation. So I'll try and, either we have to pick up the pace or let them go because that would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But we're lucky. None of our running group are like that. No.
It's a silly question, really. But
it's true. I mean, some people do like conversation or noise or whatever, but no. Yeah.
Got to find that. A happy balance.
The balance. Yes, exactly. Which when I'm with Bianca for hours and hours on end, fortunately we have got.
Yeah, it's a great relationship actually. Like just to be able to have that, it's very special.
Yeah, it's very special.
Yeah. What are you thinking about? I know that because obviously, as we've said, even though you run mostly with people, and some of the time you're chatting, there are times when you're not. So what kind of things go through your brain without being sort of details? What sort of things do you?
No, I don't think a great deal, to be honest. I just enjoy the scenery of what's around. When I had my hamstring, that was in my head. Yeah. I wish it would go away. And what was it like to run when it didn't hurt? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the majority of the time, just enjoy the surroundings, the scenery, be thankful that I'm lucky enough to be out there.
Yeah. Totally.
But there's really not, I don't think there's a lot that goes on. It's kind of nice, empty space with
just being
no stress. Yeah, no stress. Don't have any worries to worry about the majority of the time.
It's kind of it's like a mindful sort of experience for you, I guess, where we're not, because our lives are so busy. And even when we're not busy, we pick up our phone and we can be like have things pounding at us all the time. So I love that you say that that it's almost nothing. And
nothing. It's almost like meditation, isn't it? When you're not actually got anything to think about, you can just go with what's happening.
Yeah.
And
I've said this numerous times, but they've now done studies to say that our brains are just like what happens to our brains when we're running. For a majority of us, looks very similar to meditation.
So
the things that are going on in your brain, most of the time, obviously not depending on how stressful your run is, but those kind of moments, actually what's going on in your brain that looks exactly the same like meditation. The neural pathways and things are reacting.
Interesting.
So that's really cool. I love that fact.
That is cool, which is probably why we feel so good when you've come back from a run.
Yeah.
Especially as I always say when I look at the front runners, thank goodness I don't have to do what they do.
That's so stressful.
It's so stressful. Like they turn up at the start line and then they, it's got to be hard work.
Oh yeah.
I got to try and win this, or I've got to try and do this time. Or I'm so fortunate I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
All I have to do is try and get to the finish line.
Yep.
And enjoy the bits in between.
Yeah. In fact, the journey there should be.
It's the main thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've always said that, even with triathlon, I loved the training. Yes, the journey is most of it. The event at the end is the icing on the cake. And I have had times when I haven't been able to be at the start line, and it's devastating. But at least you can think, wow, at least I had all that great journey to get there, and there'll be another time.
Exactly.
To get out there again.
There's
definitely.
Plenty of reasons.
Yeah,
I love that. That's a great way to look at it. Is there? or what would you say your life would be like had you not started running? So how's running improved your life?
Oh my goodness, I can't even imagine. Devastating, I would think. I would be probably about 10 kilos heavier, that's for sure. I certainly wouldn't have the community of friends that I have got now, so I'd probably be lonely as well. It's really hard to imagine, Michelle. But I have said, and it's interesting because I went and helped unpack the trailer, so we get to do volley duties over here, which it is always nice to go and do. And I was talking to one of the chaps who was helping, and he's injured at the moment, so he has been helping with all the volunteer things. And I said to him, he said, because I like to keep in the loop, and I said, that's exactly right. So now I've got this community, if I couldn't run, I could volunteer, so that I could still be part of it and help people volunteer at events, so that I would still have that social contact, because that social contact for me has been a massive, massive thing. And when I, years ago, I didn't have a huge amount of friends. Yeah. So, and in the horse world industry, it's different again. Yeah. You don't get that kind of connection. Certainly with the triathlon, that was the start of an amazing group of friends, and it's just grown from then. And
I've had people even talk the same about, say, park runs. I mean, we're talking sort of different kind of running, but definitely that community and that ability to easily volunteer and be part of it, even if you're injured or just not running yet, like you.
Exactly, and people have made so many friends through that as well. And so it doesn't have to be ultra running. Yeah. Those people on a Saturday morning, they go and do their 5K, and it's probably the highlight of their week.
Exactly.
It's interesting.
Yeah, they make great friends.
Definitely.
We have held you up a really long time, but I do appreciate the amount of time that you've given us. Your story is fascinating. I love it.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me on.
It's been amazing. But before we go, I wanted to ask you for some tips for beginner runners. So if someone comes up to you and said, Sue, I want to start running, what would you advise them from what you've told us is great big breadth of experience and personal training as a qualification as well. So you're very well qualified to answer this question.
Don't go out too fast. Don't try and run too fast. Like people think that when they first start running that they just have to belt it out there. Slow it down. Keep your heart rate down. Breathe. Enjoy. Don't set too big goals. Keep them small. And that goes back to triathlon. Break it down into those 3 disciplines. Don't think of the big picture. Same with the delirious. Think of the aid stations, one step at a time. And that's the same with running. Just build slowly. And it's not all about being fast.
No, thankfully.
Enjoy. In fact, when my sister first when she was coaching me, one of the biggest things she said was, particularly if you do start picking up, this is even for like a 10K and you're a beginner, if you can chat, you're going fast enough. If you can't chat, you're going too fast. Slow it down. That would be my biggest tip. Just don't race off the blocks.
I get I'm very good with a couple of my friends at being the question asker.
Nice.
So that I don't have to do all the talking.
Yes, that's great. That's much better.
And then if they turn the tables on me and ask me a question and I'm having trouble answering without having to, I'm like, maybe I'm running too fast now. Anyway, so yes I do. I've heard that many times, and I agree with
that advice. Find a buddy. Find a buddy. And I always said, I only need one person, but if 3 people turn up, that's great. If you can find someone to be accountable with, it will get you out on those mornings when it's dark or it's raining. If you're meeting somebody, then you'll get up and you'll go.
I love it. That's great. Yes. Thank you, Sue. This has been amazing. I have really enjoyed getting to know you.
Thank you. Thank you awesome. So much.
All these people I keep talking to who are doing these ultra trail runs, it's just making me feel like
you need to join.
I could do an ultra trail.
Of course you can. Of course you can.
Beyond the 60 Ks. We'll see.
Yeah.
One
slowly. Just
one day.
think to 100K next, or 50 miles, which is 80 something. 80
and look, you get good at other kinds of maths too. The imperial to the
yes, exactly. I know. And that's the trouble with Sean, that none of his distances are ever what he says they're going to be. So even the delirious 200 miler, which should be 320, was 353 Ks.
What? Who's counting over that distance? That's
true.
And you'd hate it if it was shorter.
Definitely.
I said that to someone the other day, that exact thing. I'm like, runners don't care if it's, a little percentage over, but if you're even like tiny bit short, you're in trouble.
You are in trouble. Absolutely.
Anyway, Sue, stay on because I'll say goodbye to you off the call. But again, I do appreciate the time you've shared with us. It's been amazing.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast. I'd love to talk to you about your running journey. So send me a message on Facebook or on the website and let's do it. For a bunch of resources on mindful running that will help you get and stay mentally and physically fit, head over to the website fitmindfitbody.co and I'll see you there. Plus, I'll be back here in your podcast player a few times a week. Hit subscribe now so that you don't miss an episode. And before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a review. It'll help more people to find the podcast and get inspired to start running. I'll see you soon. Bye.